Hello, everyone. Welcome to section 2 of the mini course. In this section, we will be discussing the social behavior in the observation of orcas. Today, I will be going over social behavior of both resident and transient orcas. These are the same orcas that were discussed in the previous section on hunting behavior. Both transients and resident orcas travel in pods. However, the size of the pod can vary in relation to the transients and residents. This photo was also included in the previous section's overview, except this time, I wanted to include it as an example of a photo identification dialogue that researchers often keep handy with them during field observations, as we already talked about. However, this tree is also an example of a transient mother and her two calves. These three whales travel together and they also hunt together in what is called a pod. The mother and her two orca calves are a matriline in which orcas are known to stay in. Those in a pod are always found together. It is very rare to find orcas traveling outside of their pod, but it has been seen before. Some of you may recognize Luna, the southern resident killer whale. Luna was separated from her L-pod family at a young age and ultimately ended up in the waters of Nootka Sound on the west coast of Vancouver Island all by himself. It is unknown to researchers why Luna decided to stay in Nootka Sound on his own, but Luna is a rare example of an orca living alone. Luna liked to play with humans and the boats coming in and out of the inlet, as orcas are very social and needed this human connection to stay happy. Unfortunately, Luna got sucked into a tugboat propeller and was killed, one of the many tragedies these intelligent mammals have faced due to water vessel accidents. Resident orca whales have firm social structures and hunt in large dynamic groups. They can do this because the salmon they are preying on cannot easily detect them through the clicking sounds they use for echolocation. Different pods socialize and mate with each other. Once born into a pod, resident orcas stay within that pod regardless of how large in numbers that pod grows. A pod can make up multiple generations in a matriline. A matriline is the relation the whales have with each other due to maternal descent, coming from a mother, grandmother, or even great-grandmother. The females give discipline and education to the rest of the pod and provide valuable information to the young as they grow up and learn how to navigate their environment and hunt prey. Education from grandmothers in orca pods is highly valuable and contributes to the level of intellect and social dynamic carried on through generations. The southern resident orca population consists of the J, K, and L pod. This is an example here of the L pod, and it is referenced in the figure caption. But as I mentioned, the resident grandmothers are very valuable to the well-being of their pod. For example, the female matriarchs give 90% of the salmon they catch to the younger whales in their pod and teach them where to find the Chinook salmon. The female's life expectancy is about 80 years, where the male's is only about 30 years old. Females live long past their time where they can successfully reproduce due to the success that they bring to their family members outside of just reproduction. Since the transient orcas feed on mammals that have more sense to know when the orca is coming, they must travel and hunt in smaller groups. Transients strictly travel in pods of a mother and her offspring only. The mother teaches her young how to hunt in the complex ways discussed in section 1, which takes a lot of practice and learning. If a pod gets too big to successfully hunt and sneak up on prey, the oldest female offspring will be forced to split up from her mother and other siblings. Male transients never leave their mothers. It is usually the females who must leave, giving them a chance to start their own pod. The main objective we can take away from today's lesson is the differences in social behavior and pod size between the resident and transient orca whales. We discussed how the social system is a lot looser in transient whales, as they cannot provide successful hunting skills in pods that are too big because of the difference in prey they hunt than that of resident orcas. We also mentioned the importance of the matrilines in both resident and transient orca populations, as the mother and grandmothers teach the young valuable hunting skills and therefore have a longer lifespan than the males in the pods. Here are further references I used in contribution to this lesson. Thank you so much for listening.